Hello, today we're going to talk about a new feature on the Infoblox service, which is the CSV Import operation. We didn't previously have this enabled because when we first moved everything across from the old bind solution, we actually wanted all the data to be fresh and as it was from there, so we made a conscious decision to switch off the import functionality until the Infoblox service was well established. Obviously it is now, so we've now enabled the CSV import option. I'll quickly show you, I've set up a test account which is linked to Wollongong, and you can see here there's no CSV import box, and under DNS there is no CSV import option here either. So what I'll do, I'll just pause the video here, I'll go away and I'll make the changes to allow CSV import, and then we'll come back and you'll see the difference. Okay, so I've made the changes. We'll log in as the test account and you'll see straight away we get a CSV import box there. And under data management, DNS, you can see straight away we get the CSV import option there. So I've made a test zone called CEnet training. Okay, so it's blank at the moment, so we'll just make a few records as a test. I'll call this one server, IP address 10.10.10.10, no PTR record because it's internal. Save and close. We'll make a new MX record. Okay, and we'll call this mail filter. I'm going to give it a really high preference, you'll see why later on, and I'm just going to give it a different IP. Save and close. We'll make a CName. And we will call that standby, and we shall point it to server. Save and close. And then finally we'll make a text record. If you're not familiar with text records, these can pretty much say anything you like. They're purely informational. Obviously if you've used Google Apps, this is how they verify that you own the domain. You can pretty much put anything you like here, even a comment to let you know what the zone's about and what have you. Alright, so we've got our basic zone set up there. So what we'll do is we'll get straight on to the import process. Now what you can do is, as you can see here, you've got the view of the zone, and then the export option is here. Now it's important to understand the layout that Infoblox needs for you to be able to import. So the best way to do that is to find the zone that you already have and then export the data in Infoblox CSV import format. If you choose this, it will just export a text file, which is basically this layout, and that's good if you wanted to do a report and you wanted to copy and paste this information directly into a report. So we'll do export data into Infoblox. We want comma separated CSV. Export, and we'll call that its default name, that's fine. Save, and then we'll open that in Excel, and you can see straight away there's quite a lot of information in here. It's a bit busy, but I'll explain what it's looking for. So every record in a zone needs a header to be able to be imported into that particular zone. So you'll see this header A record, and the A record is actually there. So for an A record you need an address. This asterisk means it has to be there. You can specify a new address if you want to change it, the fully qualified domain name, a new FQDN if you need it, a comment if you want to put a comment on the actual entry, whether or not to create a PTR, if the record is disabled or not, the TTL time and the view, which in this case is internal because we're working on the internal view. Now it's a bit confusing because everything's all over the place, but if you look here you can see header A record. A record is down here, 10.10 is the address, there's no new address. The FQDN, sorry, is that. There's no new FQDN. There's no comment. We don't want the pointer record, that's false. It's not disabled, so it's viewable and usable. There's no TTL, and the view is internal. And what I recommend is, if you're going to be doing a lot of importing, is actually split these out into individual files. And by what I mean by that is, if we go back to my desktop, there's a tutorial folder, and I've made a default template. And you can see this is the default template as it comes out with those particular records, but I've split them off into their individual headers. So I've got header A record, address, new address, CName, header CName with the information underneath, MX record below, text record below. So if we go back, I've then individually split off those tabs into individual CSVs, and you can just keep these as a master template, so anything that you wanted to import into there, get rid of that example, put whatever you want in there and then import. So what we'll do is we'll go through the process of doing an import. Okay, so we've got a few records in there at the moment, and I'm going to clear these out just for now. Delete those. Actually, I want to keep mail filter, so we'll just delete those. Yeah. And as you probably know, you do have a recycle bin here, so anything that we've deleted is going to be in there. And I deleted the wrong one, so there we go. There's a good test. It's actually those three I want to delete. So delete those three. And there they are, they appear there. Okay, so first off, there's a lot of A records I want to put in this zone. I don't want to do it manually, so I'm going to do an import. So based on the record here, we can see this is the information that's expected. So I've already pre-made a bulk import record here. You can see it's fairly straightforward. This is what the record type is, obviously a record, and then the addresses of it. There's no new address. This is going to be the FQDN of the record. It needs the FQDN because it's not aware that this import is for this particular zone. So by specifying the FQDN, you actually tell it which zone the records are going to go into. And I'm just going to delete these because we don't need that for now. Okay, so then everything else is going to stay the same, so I'll just save that out. Okay, so now we'll go to the import process. So we want to CSV import, and you get a little pop-up window showing anything that you may have done in the past. Obviously, I've done a few uploads as a test. It's worth actually pointing out that these will stay here. I'm not sure how long they stay there for, but there's no actual option to get rid of them. So what you can do is, if you've already used one in the past and you want to redo it, you can simply highlight it, go to edit, and it will actually still have the CSV that you uploaded there with what that information actually contained, and then you can choose what you want to do with it from there. So for the purposes of this example, I'll upload a fresh file, select, opens up a new window and you have to hit select again, and then in the tutorial folder I've made one called bulk. We'll open that and then hit the upload. If you ever go back into select and then don't choose something else and hit cancel, when you try and hit upload, it will complain because it's already lost the entry that it's cached for this. So you need to hit select again, A records bulk, open, and then upload, and that will work. You can see we get a little table of what's going to happen. So you can see it's an A record. These are the headers that it's expecting, so that's all good, and what's going to be put in there. Now on this side we can just close this. This is just informational, it's just letting us know that it's going to go in the queue. there's a few options. Now, because all these records are new and I know they're new, I can just choose add. Now there is other options around editing and modifying records that are already there, but I'll actually cover that when we get to it shortly, when I show you how to change some MX records that have previously been imported. And then there's the option here of stop importing and skip to the next row and continue. This is actually very useful if you've got 1,000 entries, say, that you need to import. If it got to number 5 and actually failed, it would fail at number 5 and not go any further. But it does actually give you a sort of error report that you can download and see why it stopped. I tend to use, if I'm not sure, skip to the next row and continue. This will skip any errors, but still process all the import information that comes after that initial error. And what that does is, I'll just go back to file selection. If we were to import 60 rows, say, and 6 of them actually failed, if you choose the skip option, it will still get up to number, say, 54, and then in this download error will actually be a CSV with just the 6 entries that actually failed. So you don't need to pick your way through the entire CSV to see what actually failed, and then you can edit that CSV that was downloaded as an error and re-import that back up. So what we'll do is, we've got the file we want to import here. We'll make sure the options are set to add, and just in case, we'll stop importing if there is any errors. So we'll hit start, and it just gives you this warning every time because it's a bulk import operation. So click yes, and it will say pending, and then it should say completed with no errors. Okay, sometimes if you're doing a really big upload, it can sit there and not look like it's actually doing anything, but the rows completed will actually increment every so often. The reason there's a slight delay is it actually waits for kind of idle time between DNS queries, and it just makes sure that zone's not in use at that time, and then imports the information, waits and checks again, and then does another import. So I mean, obviously we're talking milliseconds, but there can be a slight delay if you've got a lot to import. So that imported okay, hit save and close. You'll see now that that one that we just did is now at the top of the queue. Click OK, and you'll see those new A records are all there. So we've done that, and then we've got, oh, you know what, I actually wanted to put a comment on every single one of these. I've uploaded the wrong one. Well, instead of having to delete, you can actually go back to CSV Import, choose another job, select the correct file, which is the one with the comments in it, upload, and you'll see there it's the same file, but we have actually got comments in there. Now this is where the options come into play, because we've already got records on there that exist. If we did an add, you'd get a failure for the 18 records that are in there. So you want to do edit and then choose the merge part, update missing values with values from the uploaded file. Because we're essentially uploading the exact same CSV, all we've done is added information to that we want to keep in the original. So you want to merge that information with what's already there. So we go back to file selection. In fact, we'll choose skip to the next row just in case there is any errors. File selection, double check all the comments are there. Yep, that's what we want to see, and then hit start. Okay, you see the pending time's taking a little bit longer this time. Okay, so there was no errors, rows completed 18, save and close. Okay, and you'll see now that the comments that we actually wanted to put in there have all been placed in there. So yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of A record imports. So what I'll do as well is let's say you've imported something and you think, well, actually I don't really need that. It's easier just to hit the delete. So we'll get rid of those 4. Hit delete. Click yes. If you did change your mind, you could always go back to the recycle bin, choose the ones that you want, restore that, and we'll restore that one. and they pop back in there. So you'll notice that there's only one MX record on it, and we want to add another 5. So let's say we've got a cluster of Exchange boxes. Why you'd want to be using Exchange, I don't know, but for this tutorial that's what we're going to do. So we'll import the MX records initially. Okay, so I've got some MX records here that I want to import, upload. So we've got all the mail servers here in a cluster, say, with all the priorities that have been set. They're not disabled, and it's going to the internal view. Options are going to be add, because it's create a new object, it's completely new, and we'll skip to the next row just in case there is any errors, and then start that operation. Yep. Okay, so it's completed, there was no errors. Save and close that, and you'll see now that we've got all these MX records in there. Now this one that was here before, this has got a really high priority. Now we've done an assessment, we've gone, yep, Exchange is on its way out, let's go with Google, yay, and we want to change all these records here, but we don't want to manually go in and have to rechange them all. What you can do is, and I'll show you the structure of this particular file, is you can make a import file which will actually change entries that are already there. So you can see here, this is an existing mail server. We want to change it to be the root of the zone, so you do that by giving it the root address. In the old bind systems that used to be an @ symbol, but now it's the full name. That's the MX record that we're looking for, that's the MX record that we want to change it to. That's the current priority of this MX record, and we want to change the new priority to 1, and they're all going into the internal view. So you can see in one fell swoop we're going to change all these MX boxes to Google boxes and update the priorities and set all the pointer records to be the root domain. So we'll go ahead and import that. So we'll do just one last look. You can see the MX records there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. CSV Import, select, MX records Google, open, upload, and just make sure we've got the right file, we do. And then we want to, so because this is slightly different, we've already got the information in there, but we want to completely overwrite it. We don't want to merge the two documents. So not rocket science, edit, overwrite, and then we'll do skip to the next row just in case there is any errors, but it will keep going. File selection, and then hit start. Yep. Okay, so all 6 of those rows have been imported with no errors. Save and close. Click OK. And then you can see there that we do have all those records have been replaced by Google MX records now. And we've kept this one as our backup Exchange box. So once we know everything's good, we can just do that. Hit delete, and away we go. So that is pretty much how to use the CSV import. Hopefully that's explained it enough for you to be able to use it. Again, as with all these videos, if you do come across any problems, send me an email to the email address on your screen, or log a ticket, or call the service desk. Thank you. Bye bye.